All right, so here we are. First, the prizes were amazing. If you guys want a chance, Nandeep was just saying that you have to answer some questions, which we are gonna say in the session. If you share us the value of the prize, we will tell you the answers. So thank you for Nandeep and Smita and Siddharth, like everyone here, the host, the organizers, for having us here. As I said, it's a Power Platform Festival. Right behind me, it's all lights up there. We're going to talk about tips and tricks. Uh, I think right now, if you're joining Power Platform, there will be speakers who will be talking about what is Power Platform. We're going to also say the same thing, a basic of it, but we're going to share our own experience, own expertise, how and what not to do while you're working, because Power Platform is something which Microsoft, I think, gives you a white blank paper as in canvas, and we as developers, we have built amazing products, amazing stuffs with a lot of dependencies and I would say settings and I would the tricks. It's like magical tricks we have done. From what Power Apps was once upon a time and what it is now, it's so much easier to do a lot of stuff. And I think when it was new, we struggled a lot. So welcome all. And with me, I have Nishant. With me. Speaking first, thank you to the sponsors for sponsoring the events. As an organizer, I think it's a pain to host events, but you as organizers help us to do a lot of activities from banners to providing gift hampers. Thank you for being here. So yeah, that's me. That's my LinkedIn profile on this barcode. We will share the same deck with the team, organization team. You can find me in Manpreet here. Super simple LinkedIn and Twitter handle. And then I have Nishant here.
Hi everyone, I'm Nishanth. I'm a Microsoft 365 consultant and I'm very excited to be here to talk about Power Apps and the various tips and tricks that we use in our day-to-day builds. So very excited over here and let's get there. And welcome everyone to the session.
Perfect. We have a curtain opening here because this is the first session of the day. Uh, so welcome back everyone here. As we said, we're going to introduce the Power Apps, but again, everyone here is mostly know what is Power Apps, but still we'll tell some of the major things. Nishan will be talking about Canvas and SharePoint list form, their customization, and we both will be sharing the back end, the tips and tricks, the real struggle behind building Power Apps, and what are the important stuff which you can see on real time scenario and real cases. So coming to the next Power Apps. Again, we know what Power Apps is. We won't take you much time there. I would say,
domain name.
all right, thank
Uh,
you.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'll try to mute people.
yeah,
Yeah.
please, no issues. Yeah, that's for sure. So Power App when like go back to the history when it was newly there, we just started using as a form, but again it was never for SharePoint. Its destiny was something else, and the Power App which we see right now, n number of sources, n number of data connectors. You can connect to like Google devices, to Amazon ECWs, to Azure Cosmos databases. So, but when it came, we were so happy. Oh my God, something out of the box. We are gonna get a Power App as a SharePoint form, but it was not the thing. Power App as a product was completely different from what Office 365 was providing, and now it's like a package with E3 and E5 licenses. It not only for us as SharePoint developers, it helps us to connect our beautiful forms with rules and regulations and a lot of processes, including approvals and stuff, but also in the as a backend, the flow makes it more powerful, I would say. So when Power Apps comes in the picture, it's mobile friendly. We all know that it's app friendly. It can be variation of sizes, landscape, portrait. I would say Power Apps is something which has given a crazy powerful competition to Nintex, K2, so many platforms in the market. Uh, because of the Office 365 power package, which means it's secured, it's compliance, it's gonna have a data loss prevention scenarios. Your data is very safe because it's with Microsoft. I think that blind faith has what because we all trust Microsoft. And it has brought us the Power App as a very huge platform, and that's why today I think there are several events happening, and there are thousands of people watching and trying to learn Power Apps. So Power Apps, when we talk about, it's not a power like a solution for developers. It's not like Visual Studio, like only a coder can open it. It's more of citizen development. That's where Power App is becoming famous. Most of the stuffs are out of the box, highly customizable, just drag and drop. I think I have met young people, like young people means 8-year-old and 13-year-old. Even I'm young, okay, I'm not that old. And so I've seen young people, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, Power App champions, and it's really fun. And there was one from Pune. I am not getting the name. If I get, I'll just put it in the chat later. Uh, it's really fun. Like people have been like trying to learn out of the off. I think on my own organization, I've seen my business providers. One day, a director like she was sharing her screen and tell they have built this Power App. Do you feel like of course, there might be here and there, but they even taking a step ahead is amazing. That's I think what Microsoft wanted was like low code, no code. It's coming in reality. There are success stories as citizen developer from Coca-Cola companies and even every small NGOs. They are doing so much amazing stuff. Because as I said, it's an end-to-end solution. You have like three basic things. You connect the source, you connect it to a studio, and there is an outcome. You choose the outcome as a SharePoint, Excel sheet. Just choose anyone, any platform you want. That's the whole power, I would say. And when Microsoft built, of course, I think with the 365, it started integrating every single product together. So now it's all a package. So of course, like Power App is connected to Power BI, Flow, Automate, virtual agent, SharePoint, Azure. It started connecting. So all the pre-built, I will say the connectors of Microsoft, along with external connectors, like as I said, even Facebook, Instagram, like do you can tweet, you can have a UI of a power like a Facebook interface or a Yammer interface. People have been making help desk models. There are some companies, like I won't say like the big huge ones, the huge ones still love ServiceNow, but there are help desk products real one, real time scenario cases people are using that, and it works brilliant. I would say like brilliant. Uh, like even for us, I think in our 3 years of career, even Nishan will second to that. What Power App was, we used to like laugh at it, like to like we have to try to do like a tricking, as I said, as a session is tips and tricks. We'll try to do this, even like PDF, like printer, okay, like printer. I think that was a basic requirement which we never had, and now we have a canvas print option. But initial days, how do we print this form? Oh my God, we used to struggle, and but we used to do it. I think that's what our developers work as. So, but now the Power App is so extensible to as developer with an ALM again. I would say for the citizen developer because they can also make a Power App. They can also use a share form and data entry form, whether it's external as portal, internal as canvas, and it helps them to use them. With AI Builder and portals, it's more exclusive because it gives you an upper hand of doing so many operations. But the enrichment of the data, that's important. Power Hub has make people I think have stopped using out of the box forms. So, like those are like to load. I think they brought in JSON customization on the custom out of the box form, but still Power App is Power App. It's beautiful, I would say. So that's the business application it started driving, and right now it has a team integration. You can put your Power Apps on Teams, run the standalone, connect to SharePoint library, do a lot of things. This rich canvas structure, or I would say as a canvas, I always say the name canvas is so beautiful because you paint what you want. I think Power Apps is super perfect for that. You have a direction where you're gonna drag and drop your field and your structures, your collections, your galleries, uh, based on the devices what you want to do. I have been working with like manufacturing companies, retails, healthcare, like beautiful apps. Even from taking an appointment, there are apps which are normal people are using. And surprisingly, I went to a center or what name it, and I found a Power App there, like on their normal regular operations. I was super happy being a Power App developer. All right, because it's very I would say very simple, very understandable, not like Visual Studio. Of course, we developers as Visual Studio, we because it's more power, we can write anything we want. But I think when Power App comes, and if I have to build up like just a form, for example, rather than me opening the Visual Studio, I will be quick enough to build up in an hour a whole solution, which I don't have to deploy. I don't have to write those. There were like I think in SharePoint solutions we used to deploy with install, deploy, PowerShell scripting, a lot of stuff, and it was fun. But I think with the time, it's all going away, and the Power App and has taken over the market. So coming to the next one, I think Power App, as I said, a template app Nishan is going to show you how easy it is to start with. I would say ask everyone, just go to powerapps.microsoft.com. You will see it's free. You don't have to use a credit card. You don't have to attach any Azure credits. It's just free. I would always suggest people to go to developer.microsoft.com where you get a 90 days or a year, a 365 license. It has a package of everything. Take everything. It keeps on extending. They say it's 90 days. Earlier, I think in my time, not again, I'm still young. It was 1 year. I think it has become 90 days. But still, it keeps on extending. They'll ask you, they even might call you. How are you using it? Are you okay? And if you say them that you're using for development activities, they'll keep on extending it. So just go that, and you will love easily building the custom apps. So Nishant, the next screen. I think we have like the images came in. The types of Power Apps, as I was saying, Canvas, model-driven portals. Very simple right now to start with. Now, Canvas, as I said, is like a white screen where you're gonna make an art of it. That's where normally we build applications. It can be related to any source like SharePoint, SQL, just name it. It has that many connections. We're gonna see it in live demo. Nishan would be walking us through all these three apps. Canvas app is super simple. Connect to your form, do your operations, send it for approvals using Microsoft Flow, or take approvals on the Power Apps. We actually take approvals on the Power App also because people can view it. Okay, who all approved and what happened. Model driven again for people like again, I would say like I have to make an app for an HR with like a driven app which will make a relocation process easier. It helps. It decides the source, it decides the target, and it makes the whole Power App solution more brighter. Like the major background I would say is machine learning, which Power Apps model-driven apps uses. It has its own incentive, like kind of an AI touch, which makes it the model-driven apps more powerful than the Canvas app because model. But the only problem is like, I feel as a developer again, not for a business user. Business users will love model-driven apps because on certain clicks they get a complete product to be used for the whole organization. But for me as a developer, I don't have much control on the model-driven because it will make everything for me. Now, like I was not thinking that way. I want something like better, like I won't say better, more exclusive, I would say, or extensible approach than I'll pick Canvas. Portal app again. So the difference between Canvas, model driven, and Portal first is the Canvas and model driven are internet applications. It won't be hosted for external people, but in Portal app you can host it for external people. It's like a web link which you get on a domain, and the external people out of your organization can use it without an ID. I have seen Power Portal apps with Facebook and Google integration where people can log in. If not, that's also not required. They can just keep it open. Nishant, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Manpreet. So now, since we know what Power App is and we have seen how the Power App works and what kind of different kinds of app that we have, let's do a quick peek into the whole Microsoft's cloud ecosystem, right? The so-called cloud ecosystem, where because there is a huge shift, as we all know, from developing native applications towards the low code revolution. So everyone is moving towards building applications onto the cloud. So with that said, so the first thing that we everyone is trying to look to do is a cloud transformation. You need to move your applications, move away from your old server-based architecture into the cloud. So you need to do your cloud transformation, and all your applications that used to be built on something like .NET, something was native on your servers, right? Needs to be modernized so that it works on your browsers. The client-side scripting, the client side where everything runs on your client end is where the new kind of approach, right? We don't get into the server side coding as much as we used to do in earlier days. So that's where this low code revolution makes a very big impact on each and every organization who's having a lot of backlog to build a lot of applications. So now, with that said, Microsoft has built its own ecosystem, and it has this three pillars which will help you do those things. The first pillar of this is Azure, which is nothing but all your services. Azure is vast. Azure is having your virtual machines, your services, you can write functions and all those things. Again, I don't think we could explain Azure in like 2 words, right? It's so vast. So it has so many functions, so many services that you could consume from. So that's the first pillar on which everything is built on. The second one is your Microsoft 365. So Microsoft 365 is a product suite which consists of all your Office products. SharePoint is a part of it, Teams, your Outlook, again, all the Office products like Word Online, Excel Online, PowerPoint Online, then you have OneDrive and all those things. So this is a second pillar. And then we have the Power Platform, which is a combination of your current 4 pillars of it, right? The Power BI, the Power Apps, Power Automate, and the Power Virtual Agents. So how does this ecosystem work? For example, you want to build a Power App. That means you just don't use this particular space, right? You have access, you have connectors, and you're still native within the Microsoft 365 universe. And you can also consume everything that is available within the Azure space. So that's the beauty of it. So all these pillars work together to help you do a cloud transformation and modernize all your applications in such a way that you could build we could build beautiful products for your organizations with ease and with so much flexibility. So if I want to use something like a Power App with something like SharePoint, so it's as easy as that. And again, if you want to consume some Azure functions on a Power Automate, it's easy as that. So you could just do it right away, right? So this ecosystem, this ecosystem helps you do all those things. So that's why this is a quick peek of how the whole ecosystem is laid out for the Power Platform. So now, so now our main focus on the session, right, where we are just trying to understand how Power Apps work with SharePoint. Again, as an example, Power Apps is huge, as Manpreet was saying. So you can do literally anything. And again, the low code revolution with citizen developers coming in helps you do a lot of stuff on your own as citizen developers. So now let's see a couple of things that we can do with SharePoint just to make sure that we compare those two two products where not two products, your Power Apps where you could connect it back to SharePoint and see how it works. So in the next 2 slides, we are gonna see a quick differentiation between how the Canvas apps work and how the SharePoint form customizations work, because we all know, and let me put this again, right? So when we talk about application modernizations, the first thing I know, there is a lot of applications, there is a lot of application backlog that we as developers look into for the organization so that we want to build. But there is also some issues that are currently not, you can't call it issues, but there are certain burning problems like InfoPath is going away, which everyone knows about. It's a sunset product. So now And over the years, all the organizations, all the Microsoft based developers built a lot and lot of info platforms. So now how do you do the application modernization for that? So that's where initially, even when I started, when Manpreet started, we I think our first projects were like InfoPath modernizations, because Microsoft sent a news saying, Microsoft put out a news saying that we are gonna sunset InfoPath. And okay, what's the product for it? What's the product? What do I do? How do I take all those big list of InfoPath forms and where do I move it? So to do that is where we started looking into the Power Apps. But uh, is Power Apps just a conversion tool? No. Microsoft has been always calling out, saying that uh, that it's not just a, what do you say, replacement for InfoPath. So they always call it, saying that Microsoft, I mean, they were very clear about it on the roadmap, saying that Power Apps is never a replacement of your InfoPath tool. Power Apps is much more than that. You have the whole universe over there. So you can build Canvas apps, model-driven apps, you can do portals, you have the power of Dataverse in there, so much behind it, right? So now, um, since we are on the topic of the Canvas apps versus the SharePoint list form customization, and again, InfoPath modernization, there InfoPath, one thing that InfoPath provided with was the ability to customize the SharePoint forms. We all use SharePoint. We don't want just the blank SharePoint forms where it says, okay, just a blank form. So everyone customized it with great colors, great logics, great rules on InfoPath. So now, um, since what do you say? Since Power Apps can be used to customize your list forms, so we are looking a comparison between how do you do a Canvas app or how do you do a SharePoint list form customization, or what are the major differences? A quick peek or 10,000 level feet of a view of how these things work, because there might be scenarios where you want to, because SharePoint is a data source in itself, you could connect a Canvas app to SharePoint. But again, if there is a SharePoint list, you could customize from that. So Canvas apps, what are the pros? Canvas apps, it's easy to configure, right? We know you can drag and drop things. You don't need to do a lot of scripting or a lot of things to do a small functionality. Everything is right there. You could do Excel-like formulas. You could build certain things quickly. Uh, yes, you have the ability to write scripts and put it in a solution. But again, it's easier to do with the Canvas apps. Most of the things that you used to do, like with 10 lines of code on a Visual Studio application earlier. You could do multiple data sources, you could do configure views, you could do forms. And again, with Canvas apps, you can configure Power Apps web part on your SharePoint side. You could use, I mean, it's part of your, again, Power Apps is always been responsive. You could use it on your mobile or tablet. It's easy to export and import. But what would be the cons if I have to create a Canvas app and connect it back to a SharePoint list? Because I want to do something where I want to input some data into SharePoint. So the cons mainly come with the permissions, because Power App, even though because Power App, as we saw in the ecosystem, right, it's a separate entity in your Microsoft ecosystem. So it has its permissions of its own. You'll have to set that up. But if you see SharePoint, who have been using SharePoint, you know there are multiple SharePoint permission levels. You have read, you have contribute, you have edit. You can create your own permission levels. But can that be brought into can similar functionality be brought into Canvas apps? No. Canvas apps has its own permissions. You can still do a lot of validations, make sure that you have certain access on here and also have access so that it is a seamless behavior. But the same level of permissions, not possible. This resides on your powerapps.com, and again, the redirection part of it. all those things, right? Because if you're customizing a SharePoint list, then it's a different behavior because you're still within SharePoint. But if you are doing from a Canvas app, that means you are on the powerapps.com and you're trying to do something externally, and it redirects back to its own powerapps.com. So um, then again, there are what do you say? If you do it as a Canvas app, then somebody who has direct access to the SharePoint can also use the list in the backend form to input data. So you have essentially two different mechanisms. There are ways to block, ways to do things where you can put some conditions in there. But again, mainly if you're doing it a separate source and people, everyone is smart now. Everyone is a citizen developer. Everyone knows how to get through the system. So that's one of the cons of Canvas apps. So while we are looking at what to use and when to use it, so Canvas app has this pros and this cons. But now let's see, how do you customize? I mean, we are not getting into um, what exactly, what exactly how you could do it now, right? It's a simple, you get into the SharePoint list form, you have an option directly there to customize list form, and then it takes you to the Power App experience. So what are the pros and cons of doing this? Yes, so the pros are the permissions of the lists get over, so you're still within the context of SharePoint. You have the forms directly connected. Although it's not a replacement of InfoPath, most of the things that you could do with InfoPath can be also done here. It enhances your functionality of SharePoint, right? Because I have had applications where just a SharePoint form in the backend with some columns, and the app that the list form that is customized is of multiple screens. You could have a whole experience over there where you could build using various things. You could use collections, variables, and a lot of things. Um, you could do the customization on both the list and the library forms. You could trigger automate workflows so that if you have some, you don't have to go back to the list and do it again. You could do it directly from Power App. So there are some cons as well with doing this approach, is that there are certain fields if you have managed metadata, the lookups, and this has been, and we know Power App is an ever evolving tool. There are changes being done daily. Microsoft is continuously working on improving it. But currently, if you are using some complex field types like the managed metadata, the retrieval of it is a little bit not as we used to think or as we used to do with InfoPath or any direct connections. So managed metadata has its own problems where the tree view becomes a drop down and all those things. And the import and the export of it, you can still do it, but again, there is a workaround for it. So these are some of the pros and cons if you have to consider whether you want to either customize a SharePoint form or you want to use a Canvas app to hit and input data into SharePoint. So one thing that we would like to bring up here is your licensing, right? Because what Microsoft says here is that Microsoft has various per platform licenses. So now you have the per platform licenses, you have the per user licenses, per app licenses. But when your organization gives you something like an enterprise-wide license, maybe an E5 or an E3, what happens is um, when you try to do something like an E5 license, Microsoft says you can go ahead and use it to what do you say, edit all your Office 365 products. If I want to do something on SharePoint, if I want to do a OneDrive form, if I want to do something based on my tasks or Outlook or Planner, then it's all there. I don't have to pay for an extra license. So that's the beauty of it, where you could use the benefits of an enterprise-wide license because it's all within the same environment and you can use it to the benefits. So that's primarily on the uh, differences between using a Canvas app or SharePoint form customization. So you could do all those things, use your, again, at this point of time, um, Canvas apps own capabilities, list form, assets. You can do everything with SharePoint list form customization that you could with Canvas, but there are some pros and cons that you'll have to consider while choosing things. And again, if it is a list form customization that you have to do, it has to be there. It has to be there. So these are the pros and cons that we have to know before we do take that decision in. So
So Nishant,
with that,
before we go to the next one, the major magical stuff which you're gonna talk about, there are some questions. Let's answer them. Uh, the first question is, how can we make app responsive when we use customized form options for SharePoint list?
let me, I'm also trying to bring up the, oh, I see a lot of questions, so that's
Yeah.
good. So yeah, so app responsive. So by default, you don't have to do anything much over there, right? So Power Apps we know is all responsive in nature. So if you use the behavior of it, it's definitely gonna work based on the size of it. So that's the main reason of the whole low code revolutions, right? So, but again, if you want to do something like specifically you want to control the responsiveness for it, then there are definitely containers. Have a look into how you can bring in containers and make sure that you can use that to what do you say, uh, model, or how you can build an application using that, how you can model the various controls within it. So definitely have a look into that. I think we can find
Right.
some links
And
and post.
I'll add to that, like so amazing stuff is just go to the app settings. You can shut down the aspect ratio and shut down the fit to screen option. The screen will become dynamic, and then the Microsoft has launched a layout width for small, medium, large, and XL devices or screens. I would say they are predefined, like 2-inch, 5-inch, 8-inch, like that. You can again put a value to it and redefine the value. So that will make the, as Nishan said, the containers more dynamic, or the galleries. If you use the galleries, it makes them more dynamic. But you have to switch off all these complete functionality of Power App, which is by default to make it like deviceable, ready for mobile and app. But there is a way you can make it responsive. It takes a little while. Some calculations, some formulas, but very simple as layout dot width dot small dot s dot m dot l dot xl. It's very defined. We can share the link if I can find it right while we speak.
Definitely, yeah. So there are multiple ways, right? And by default, Power Apps is supposed to be responsive, but again,
Right.
it's not an ideal world. So you'll have to do some, as developers, when you build those things, you'll have to do those things.
Right. So
Other
second,
question,
yeah,
yeah,
second one
good.
is, can we opt for Power Platform without M365 subscription? Yes, you can. You can go just for Power Apps. Don't require a 365 subscription. But if you have, that's better, because the source and the connectors, where will you save the data? Or like you have to get something or the other in that case.
Yeah, and licensings with Microsoft 365 or Microsoft has always been, what do you say, has always been a little bit of, what do you say, it's an ever-changing environment. So if you're looking for something on Power Apps specifically, then you have a per user license or a per app license. You can put licenses only for an app, or you can have licenses only for what do you say, only for per user. But again, if I'm not wrong, the per user licenses is somewhere around like $40, and the per app licenses have its own value. So you definitely would go around the way of Microsoft 365, because it covers most of the things. The premium per users or the premium licenses come into picture only when you connect into various premium sources. But again, enterprise license gives you a lot more than that. Gives you, it helps you move away from your uh, application, your
कल 2 मिनट के लिए पहना था नहा के पहन लेगा
All right, किसी को 2 minutes चाहिए, and let's give that 2 minutes to them. So okay, so let's go quicker. We just have 20 minutes. Me and Nishan can speak for the day, for tips and tricks. But let the question keep coming because we love it. InfoPath is a replacement of sorry, Power Platform is no, it's not a replacement. InfoPath was super powerful, a super different product. There are still companies who are still loving InfoPath. They hate Power App for n number of reasons. But yes, as developers, we feel Power App is much more like the replacement of InfoPath. But when we go to the real case scenario, InfoPaths are still more, I would say, more powerful than what Power App is. But they have their own different variations of the product. Nishan, they want to know how can you export import the SharePoint list form, the Power Apps.
Yeah, so there is a workaround for that. You'll have to something like how you used to, if you're from SharePoint backend, you know how you moved a workflow from one environment to an environment where you change the SOML files in the backend, change those list IDs and do those things. So I think there is a couple of links that talk about how do you do those things and we can share it out. So I think it is still doable. I just want to put out there it's a workaround. It's not a direct approach, but we will try to provide those links after the call.
Yep, there is a way of everything. So yeah, we just have 20 minutes, so let's go and talk about tips and tricks, and we come back to your questions.
Perfect. So let me get back to yeah. So tips and tricks. Let's get into some of them. So these are some of the things that we're going to run over as useful tips that we can do. So we'll go through it one by one. So and in interest of time, we are not going to do what do you say heavy demos on this ones because it is as we said we can go over and over on Power Platform for a long time. So this let me quickly bring up my Power app. My Power App application and how do I bring this over here? I hope everyone can see my browser. Manpreet, is my browser available?
Oh yeah,
On
yes, yeah.
So the first thing that we want to talk about, or the first tip that we would like to put across there is, give me 1 second, let me try to make this, let me set this up from my end. Yeah, so first, give me 1 second, but is the screen still available? I think I'm having a little bit of trouble, so. Okay.
Yeah, now we can.
Yeah. So now, first thing when you get into Power App as a developer, you need guidance on how to do things, right? So when you came to make.powerapps.com, you have all your apps over here. You can create apps. It says you can do all these data sources. You could do a blank app and all those things. But first tip is get inspired from the templates that are already there. Microsoft puts a lot of templates. So many Canvas apps over here, so many, there's a portal, there are model driven apps. How do you play with it? Just create the app on the way you need. I'm sorry. And once this is ready, break down the app, see what was done, what are the formulas that are being used, how you can change the things. And again, as we are seeing here, Power Apps just works its magic in the back end, gives you all the things that are needed, and you could use this template to break down, right? So I just clicked on that. I got the app, that template that was there. Now, if I want to see how this was being done, what is the formula on this? What is the on select property of this? So I could see how the formulas are being written. What is Microsoft's best practice on doing advanced formulas like OnStart? What are they doing? All those things, right? So there's a lot of learning over here. So if you want to do something, if you feel there is a new requirement, maybe there is a template for that. So there is always best way to go over there and see what templates Microsoft has put across, break them and see how it is built. And that would get a long way in the Power App learning journey. That's one thing. So the second tip that we wanted to bring over was the use of variables. We or anybody from a developer background or anybody who has used code or any with the technical background know how important are variables in any kind of development. So you do development in JavaScript, your C#.NET, anything of that kind, right? So you know how variables play an important role. So now if you think Power Apps is just drag and drop functionality, it's more than that. You can write all this, you can have variable functionality, and just by having variables, you could do a lot of things. So let me build uh, what do you say? Bootcamp. I'm just quickly building a Canvas app from the blank to showcase a couple of things. So this is your Power App Studio. You have a lot of options. So just get into this, start playing with this. As soon as you know, you will see that there is a lot of options over here to put in all your controls, various kind of things. Mixed reality is there. You could build all those things. So now if you want to do something like variables, there are different types of variables over here. So you, with anybody with a development background, we know there are global variables which work across the whole application. There are contextual variables that work in that particular context. So the same concept also works over here. So if you want to create a variable, so let me do a very quick uh, demo over here. So I'll put a text control. Let me put a button, and with this button, if I want to set up a contextual variable, how do I do that? It's simple as writing a formula called as update context, which is nothing but takes the creates a variable, and there is a format for this, right? So I can call it like my local val, and this has to have the value of my text input, which is um, my text input when, and forgive my bad naming conventions over here, just in the interest of time. So put the text over here, and that's how easy is it to create a variable. So that's all right. So now let me put a label and show the value of my local val. So and label variable text local variable. So now let me run this. Let me put a value of like what, 52, something like that. Just click on this button. My local variable is 52. And I can use this over the whole browser, whole screen experience to use the value anywhere. Do I want to have a global variable? How do I do that? There is a single other functionality called as set. And this lets you set a global variable. So how do you do that? Call it something like, OK, I can show this a little bit better, I think. So let me put a different button. And let me call this. And the global variable goes like this. A set. The variable name, which is my global value. And the value is my text input again. Global variable is set. So now why do you use global variables? Global variables can be used across your screens. So if you want to do that, let me create a new screen. And if you see over here, there are various screen options as well. You have print screens, which is a very good thing to use, right? Because you have a portrait print, your landscape prints, you could use, which comes with that print functionality by default, you could go ahead and use. I love this scrollable where it gives you this option of giving you the scrollable print, right? Where it has its own canvas inside, it has its own data card, and you could have a scrollable data, right, where you could set all those things. So now, having said that, can I access my value of global variable over here? Let me, if you see that and try the global variable, you see that my global variable is here. But can I get my local variables? No. So how do you want to move that local variables from screen to screen? There is a way for that. You could use a navigate functionality, and on maybe on a click on this, I could, if you see the navigate functionality, you see there is navigate to maybe screen 2. It's a transition, and if you see, this is where you can move the local context of it, right? So you could use the local variable and you could catch it out here. So that's how you could move a variable, a local variable from page to page. So there are multiple ways you can play around with, and I think as we keep on going, there's a lot of things you could do with the variables. So that's one thing. Use variables, get inspired from the templates, use the HTML control. So you have this rich text editor where you could uh, you could do a lot of things because your application just doesn't needs to be useful. It also needs to be beautiful. So if you want to do some kind of an HTML input over here where you want the whole page, for example, my first page has an HTML design. I could quickly put an HTML design over here and design it in the way I need. So use the HTML control. It's a very good thing. Then use formulas to do everything. A lot of formulas over there. So let me bring my other screen over here and try to show a simple thing. So I quickly, just before this, I just quickly put our a gallery and connected it to one of my Excel sheets. So if you want to, the scrollable thing, if you want to have a behavior in such a way that all the data keeps on pulling instead of you cutting it over to a gallery, right? You could use formulas to do that. How do you do that? I wrote a simple formula where on this gallery, there is something called as template size, which is nothing but the size of this each and every row on this. What is it? I set it to some value, and then what you do, the whole height value of the whole gallery, right? So if you set it into count rows, get me all the values from count the rows in this whole data set that I have and multiply that with the template size gives me an option where it keeps on scrolling. So you could control the height dynamically is what I was trying to say. So you could do those with formulas. You could do again a lot of things with formulas with collects, patches, and a lot of things. Use components. Components again are reusable things that you can build on your application. So if you see over here, I could build a component as easy as welcome to Power Apps. And if I go on any of my screen and I can have that same behavior everywhere. So if I see over here, I just added it over here. So you could come out to here, add your components. And again, components you could build on the application. You could build custom code based PCF controls and bring them in as solutions and use them. So that's the beauty of components. And again, one more important thing that we wanted to bring up here is use solutions as much as you can. Use the environments in such a way that you have a proper environment strategy and control the access on each and everything. And that will help you manage the components as various managed and unmanaged solutions that you can put in. I know in this session, I think we'll not be able to cover all those governance based things. But again, just a note over there, even if you're a citizen developer or any kind of a Power App developer, understanding that governance plays a very important role is very important in the Microsoft Power Platform environment. So use the components. Another quick tip is to have a screen altogether for the admin, so that if you hand over your Power App down the line, you have all the data written over to it, right? Something like uh, have an admin page which gives instructions so that if somebody comes in, okay, I did this kind of a workaround over here, so that if somebody comes in the future, it's easy for them to go ahead and take that reins from you. So that's the admin page. And over to you, Manpreet. A lot of other. I know we are almost at time, but there
Yeah,
are
yeah, I
some.
think we have 8 minutes. Yeah, I was actually just typing to someone about the default role limit. So it's 500 by default for every application. You can go to any number of it. There's no such limitation. Microsoft says 2000, but to be honest, like you don't even require 500. It makes the app very heavy. We have built applications with a million record. So the Microsoft just says like delegation. I have, if you see the in the tag, it's delegation, delegation, delegation. Use delegative operations uh, because it will help you to make the application much more lighter. The Power App can't be like loading it for like a minute and you're waiting. All right, there is my record. You can put in gallery filters, which are amazing, directly on the gallery. You can have your operations pick up what kind of data operations you're looking. We even have gone to a SQL database, search for a table or data, and then fetch it out. So that the delegation value is very important. It of course you can increase the limit, but well, you don't need a view. If you need a view, you can always use a SharePoint library view, which has a limit threshold value of 5,000, and you can store even like a million. It doesn't matter, or a SQL. Delegation is just for improving the performance. So every time, try not to have even more than 50. I would say have the data which you require on a right that current stage. If not, that's totally fine. Uh, so that's the default role limit and the delegation. And so, but the data connection, okay, so there is a limit in the data connection. I think it's 30. But again, don't even go to that level, because what happened is, for example, you have an organization and you made an app with 30 different connections, and now you're publishing that connector. And if Nishan joins that organization and 99% that app doesn't work with the first single sign on, they have to go and fix that connection. It will like show an error, fix connections, and they have to do like 30 times fixing the sign in connection. Again, Microsoft suggests don't do that. Just have like a limited number of connections. And I don't think I have been working and Nishan has been working. I think the maximum I would have gone is like 6 or 5 connections. We don't require that many connections. So that's a limit. Have it always. Most important part is on start property. Optimize it. How can you optimize it? Now, Nishan showed you the variables, right? Or he showed you the collection. Make sure those collections are cleared whenever you are running them on the runtime on start, because that will help the Power App again to be lighter. See, the major functionality is we can't build heavy applications and load the Power App, because first thing, Power App is on a browser, it's not on a solution. Second thing is it's again directly connected to your internet. Even if you're on an intranet, it doesn't matter. And see, so the lighter you make the Power App, the better it is. And if you see the here the user concurrent load, you need to clear everything whenever you are clearing the collections, clearing the variables or the global variables when they are not in use. You can always store the cache. There are ways to store cache data, which makes the app more faster. If there's a drop down, store the cache data as much as you can. You don't have to wait for the drop down to reach the SQL. See, this you would understand when you're working on SharePoint, because you're right there with the data source and you're building up over the ship. You will understand when there's a SQL table in the backend, for example, with like 1,000 row values. You will wait for that drop down. That drop down won't even open for a minute. You're just waiting for it to load. And trust me, on the real time scenarios, that's crazy, and the client doesn't appreciate it. So simple functions like clear collect and clear the variables. And I think Microsoft has a language is FX, or I'm not
Power
getting
Power
Power
Apps.
FX. Yeah, Power FX. whatever you do in Excel right now, you can do the same in Power Apps. So the Power FX language is like C# language is Power FX language. It makes it more highly editable. So anybody who can write an Excel sheet formula, definitely not me. I hate Excel sheet and the working on them. But you can write the same formulas on Power FX. So that's the power of loading it there. There are a few questions. Nishan, let's take it before we have 3 minutes.
Yeah, so I think there
Go
was
ahead.
one interesting, one interesting. I know this is a very short time. There was one interesting tip I wanted to share. So if you are using mobile versus your browser, I quickly was looking over for various tips. So I found out that there was a way where you could distinguish between whether this is a mobile or whether this is an browser, because how it works is there are formulas like acceleration and location. So those things only work on your iOS or Android devices, and it becomes 0 for your desktop devices. So if you write something like acceleration.x is greater than 0, you could write an if condition where it says, OK, if it is acceleration is greater than 0, then it's a mobile, or else it's a desktop. If it's a mobile, launch the app. If it's the desktop, launch the browser. So you could do a lot of things like that. Again, there is a lot of tips and tricks that come when we keep playing around with this. I don't think an hour is enough for this, but again, this is something that we found out. So as you start playing with this, you will come up with a lot of more tips and tricks, and we'll keep sharing with the community so that everyone gets benefit from it. So
Yeah,
I
well,
see.
there are like a couple of questions. I think if we have time, organizers don't beat us. Okay, me and Nishan can stay for a day, and we are loving the end between all of you. Amazing questions, people. Okay, somebody posted. Let me come down.
May
Suppose
I
I have. Yeah, go
know,
ahead, Nishan.
it says, may I know when to use Canvas app, model driven app, and web portal? Yeah, Canvas apps, if you want to have a UI based application, UI heavy application, Canvas app, data heavy application, model driven apps, portals, external users. So that's the whole mantra of how you can use things. Um, like, can we create our own rich text editor? Yes, you can do a lot of things with PCF controls. You could play around with building those controls on your own, build them as solutions. You could bring them within the Power Platform environment and use it so that you can build you can Power App is getting open and open day by day. So you can bring in code, you can put in web resources, you can write your own PCF controls. It's not so Microsoft recently not just calls it low code, they also call it as it can be low code, pro code, no code, whatever. So they're like in that direction where even pro code is coming in. So definitely you could do those things.
Oh, I think we will rest our case. Shruti, yes, it has code for developers. Yes, we can write any number of code there for very limited formulas, not like Visual Studio. Of course, we'll have limitations. We can't have start writing JavaScript code. Maybe one day, you never know. Maybe like tomorrow, Power App changes like on an hourly basis. Like if you log in tomorrow, you will see a different UI while you're at work. Like, oh, this is something new. So, well, I think it has a lot to learn, and I guess there are more speakers today lined up. They are gonna show you more stuff. I was happy to reach out. You can just reach out to me and Nishan on our social platforms, and we are there to guide you up.